I've always been skeptical of psychology as a formal science, especially when it portrays itself, at least implicitly, as an arbiter of truth, or if psychologists prop themselves up as objective observers of human nature. I know they don't characterize themselves in that light, but some capitalize on that position. Some position themselves in that light, at least implicitly, right? But psychology offers some really interesting insights into the human psyche. It can certainly categorize certain behaviors and um, define them precisely, especially in tandem with neurology, when you find neurological changes in the brain that reflect a certain mental disorder, for instance. My problem is when, people implicitly define a certain set of behaviors as normal, right? And it's never implicitly defined as normal or disordered, but the very notion of disordered implies there is a dual um, aspect of normality. And yes, there's certain things which occur naturally, right? I mean, one could argue selfishness and opportunism is a natural predisposition some people have, doesn't necessarily mean we act on it. Um, some things occur naturally that we should or shouldn't encourage depending on their life affirming value, in my opinion. It's very Nietzschean, right? But normality is often arbitrarily defined by society. So I find it interesting how many people utilize psychology, right, to pathologize a natural response to suffering, right? Does society necessarily foster robust mental health? I find it often encourages isolationism, depression, a passive spectatorism and indifference, or even narcissism, right? So, as psychologists, should we be simply defining an individual as, neurodivergent or neurotypical or disordered or, undisordered or whatever? Or should we also be um, analyzing, social conventions and mores that contribute to any disorder or lack thereof in society? We need to precisely define the terms that we use, because otherwise we take a person who suffered tremendously and simply categorize them as having a disorder of sorts, whereas that person might genuinely be very agreeable, very kind, and otherwise sound in their reasoning, but suffers tremendously from pain, from trauma, from so on and so forth. Then you have another person who, doesn't have the same characteristics, but is disordered in the sense that, they aren't typical or average. Those two people are considered both disordered, even though they can be very different. In any case, psychology can offer some very interesting insights into the human psyche. But not everyone fits that mechanistic sort of category, right? Some people are more dynamic in the sense that you can't really fit them neatly into any particular category. Personality styles are certainly a thing, but sometimes it's implied that every aspect of the human psyche is fixed. Some of us have a natural predisposition to have a certain personality or, temperament, so on and so forth. Although, we can't always pathologize everything, right? Having anxiety can actually help you survive, right? And I'm not saying psychologists portray it that way. They're often very nuanced. But again, society can arbitrarily define what's considered normal. And even the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Health has redefined what it's considered mental disorders over time, right? So it's just something to consider, because some psychologists ascribe this certain pretentiousness to themselves in that they are the objective observer, unfiltered by, you know, the the muddiness of the human experience um, against their patients. The patient is helplessly dependent on the psychologist as a savior of sorts to confess their innermost fears and desires. And some psychologists derive a sense of power from that. So again, I'd just be very wary of propping up any particular doctrine as absolute. It can very well be provisional in the sense that certain insights can help you garner a more deeper understanding of yourself. Projection, how you see the world may in many ways be a reflection of how you see yourself, and vice versa. But we mustn't prop it up as an ultimate arbiter of truth, right? Psychologists are humans.